I'm 62 years old, and I've been sleeping in the backseat of a rusted-out Toyota for the past 89 nights. Every morning I wake up to the sound of my own breath, fogging up the window's small, perfect circles of condensation that disappear the moment I press my hand against the glass. It's December in Oregon. Cold doesn't just bite, it lingers in your bones. The cardboard I sleep on has lost its stiffness, molded to the shape of my spine. I wear 3 layers at night, but still wake up shivering, my knees aching, my dignity slowly leaking out with the heat. I park behind an old office supply store that closed during the pandemic. No one comes here anymore, which makes it safe enough to disappear. That's what I've become, something easy to overlook. My daughter, Emily, lives 30 minutes away. She knows where I am, sort of. She knows I'm in my car. She just doesn't ask where exactly. The last time we spoke, she said, "Just hang in a little longer, Mom. Brad's under a lot of pressure with the new baby coming, and you know how he gets when he's stressed." I do know, that's why I left. And yet, every night before I fall asleep, I still check my phone, half hoping for a message that never comes. Not even a "Are you warm enough?" Just silence, cold and complete. It wasn't always like this. When I lost my house to the flood last September, Emily was the first person I called. She picked up on the first ring, and her voice cracked with worry. "Of course you can stay with us, Mom. Just until you get back on your feet." I believed her. I wanted to. At first, it felt like a safe place to land. I helped with the dishes, cooked dinner a few nights a week, read bedtime stories to my granddaughter Lily, and tried not to take up too much space. But 6 weeks later, the welcome had worn thin. It started with little things. Brad taping the grocery list to the fridge, with a subtle highlight over anything I ate more of. The bathroom schedule mysteriously shifting to better accommodate Lily's sleep routine, which somehow meant I couldn't shower after 8 p.m. And then came the note. It was taped to the kitchen cabinet. Written in Brad's blocky handwriting, "Please limit personal laundry to weekends. Thanks." No "Hi Mom," no smiley face, just a command stuck like a label on the life I was now disrupting. That evening, I packed my few bags and told Emily I'd find somewhere else to stay. She didn't protest. She didn't even look up from Lily's high chair. She wiped banana from her daughter's chin and said, "Brad's been stressed. You know how he gets." I knew exactly how he got. He got short, he got cold, he got entitled to a peace and order that didn't include me. I didn't blame her at first. I thought, maybe I'd been too much. Maybe I stayed too long. Maybe, at 62, I really did need to stop being a burden and start figuring things out on my own. So I moved into my car. I told myself it was temporary. Just a few weeks. I had some savings, enough for maybe 1 month of rent if I found something cheap. But cheap doesn't exist when your credit's a mess and your mailing address is a license plate number. I started spending my days at the library, charging my phone, applying for jobs, researching aid programs. I showered at the gym using a 3-day free trial under different names. I learned to ration a single cup of coffee for warmth and alertness. Emily checked in via text once every week or so. "You doing okay? Or hope it's getting better." She always added something cheerful, like Lily learned a new word, or Brad might get that promotion, as if her news could warm my nights. But what stung most wasn't the distance. It was how quickly I became inconvenient, how easily love turned into logistics. That's when I realized some people love you most when you're easy to manage, when your needs don't require their adjustment. And once you step outside the script they wrote for you, the spotlight dims. The stage door locks from the inside. There's a certain kind of silence in families that speaks louder than words. It's not the angry kind, not the yelling, the slamming doors, or the ultimatums. No, this silence is polite, civil, wrapped in phrases like "just for now" or "we'll figure it out." It's the kind of silence that kills slowly like carbon monoxide. You don't notice until you've already stopped breathing. Emily and I used to talk every Sunday. Just small things, recipes, weather, stories about Lily's preschool. And for a while I thought that meant we were close. But looking back now, I wonder if we were just familiar. There's a difference. Familiarity keeps things surface level. It remembers your favorite casserole but forgets how you like to be spoken to. It invites you over for the holidays but flinches when you stay too long. And when things get uncomfortable like job loss or grief or, God forbid, homelessness it doesn't lean in, it looks away. I've learned that some daughters want mothers who are wise, warm, and available but not messy. Not broken, not inconvenient. That's the word that kept echoing in my mind, inconvenient. When I lost everything, Emily didn't get cruel, she got quiet. And that quiet carved out more pain than shouting ever could. I've talked to other women at shelters, in parking lots, even in library bathrooms. Their stories sound eerily like mine. Parents who raised kids alone, who worked double shifts, who gave up vacations and sleep and comfort, and years later, found themselves sleeping in cars while their adult children planned baby showers. There's something no one tells you about growing older sometimes. The people you loved most can't or won't carry the weight of who you become when life gets hard. And that doesn't make them villains, it just makes them human. But recognizing that doesn't make it hurt less. It still breaks something inside you to look at someone you gave your life to and realize they only have room for the version of you that doesn't need anything in return. The cracks were always there, we just didn't talk about them. But cracks have a way of spreading. And eventually, everything gives. It was a Tuesday, not special, not tragic, just another Tuesday that felt like every other one before it. I was at the public library, sitting at my usual corner terminal, refreshing job boards and reading articles I'd already skimmed a dozen times. Then I saw it. Subject line, Estate of Lucille Baker, urgent contact request. I almost deleted it. Spam maybe, a scam probably, but something curiosity or stubbornness made me click. Dear Ms. Evans, it read, we represent the estate of the late Lucille Baker. Our firm has been attempting to locate you in regard to a bequest made in her will. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss the inheritance she has left in your name. I read the email 5 times, then a 6th, my heart thudded against my ribs. Lucille? Aunt Lucille? She'd moved to California decades ago, my mother's younger sister, the one with the big laugh and the collection of antique teacups. We hadn't spoken in over 20 years. I thought she'd passed long ago, forgotten like most of the older generation whose Christmas cards stopped arriving. But she'd remembered me. When I finally called the number, the lawyer's tone was indifferent, professional, matter of fact. You've inherited a home in Pasadena, California. A 1920s craftsman-style bungalow, along with investment accounts and life insurance benefits. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. How much are we talking about? The home is appraised at approximately $865,000, he replied. Liquid assets total just over $320,000 before taxes and minor debts. I couldn't speak. For months, I'd been counting quarters in gas station bathrooms, sleeping in a car that leaked when it rained. And now, someone I barely remembered had left me a new beginning. After I hung up, I just sat there, in that plastic library chair, surrounded by students typing essays and retirees browsing cookbooks. I sat, stunned. No one knew that the woman in the corner, unwashed, unnoticed, and alone, had just inherited over $1 million. And everything was about to change. The flight to California felt like moving through a dream I hadn't earned. I used cash to buy the ticket, money I'd been saving for a security deposit hoarded like treasure, protected as my last card to play. As the plane lifted into the gray sky, I stared out the window, half expecting to wake up in the back of my car, cold and hungry again. But when I stepped into the California sun, something shifted. There was warmth in the air. Not just weather but possibility. A car was waiting at LX, sent by the law firm. The driver's name was Pedro, an older man with laugh lines and a quiet way of talking. On the freeway, he asked, first time in California. Not since I was a kid, I said. Family out here? I paused. Kind of. He nodded slowly. Sometimes the family we forget about is the one that saves us. When we pulled up to the house, I couldn't speak. It was beautiful. Faded but proud. A bungalow with weathered paint, a wraparound porch, and tall oak trees casting afternoon shadows across the yard. Inside, the air smelled like lavender and old books. The living room had built-in shelves filled with mysteries and poetry. The kitchen, though dated, was spotless. There were plants in every corner, thriving, green and carefully tended. It wasn't just a house, It was a life. In the bedroom, I found photographs of Lucille over the years, some alone, many with another woman, always the same one. Tall, silver-haired, eyes that smiled even in still frames. They were together in every photo, on beaches, in gardens, holding hands on this very porch. Her name was Margaret. They'd been partners for almost 40 years. I stood there, holding a picture of the two of them laughing over coffee, and realized Lucille hadn't just remembered me. She had chosen me. Her lawyer explained it all. Lucille had no children. Margaret's family had contested her will after she passed, but Lucille stood firm. And 6 months before she died, she updated her own will, leaving everything to me. Not because I was the closest relative, but maybe because I was the most forgotten. Maybe she saw something in me. Or maybe she understood what it felt like to be invisible to the people who should have cared the most. That night, I slept in her now my bed. Clean sheets, soft pillows, real warmth. For the first time in months, I wasn't afraid of being woken by a knock on my window or the engine of a garbage truck. I was home. Not just under a roof, but seen, safe, and free to start again. Emily's text came 2 days later. So, we heard about the inheritance. That's amazing, Mom. Brad and I were thinking of coming out to visit maybe next weekend. No, how are you settling in? No, is the house what you expected? Just a smiley face, a flight plan, and the smell of curiosity cloaked in concern. I should have said no. But part of me was still clinging to hope that maybe now, with the stress of survival gone, we could fix what was broken. Maybe they'd see me as more than a pit stop. Maybe they'd be proud of what I'd rebuilt. So, I said yes. They arrived Saturday afternoon, stepping out of a rental car looking tanned, well-rested, and mildly impatient. Emily hugged me like someone greeting a distant relative. Brad offered a flat, nice place before glancing around the neighborhood. At dinner, they were all smiles. We're just so happy for you, Mom, Emily said, sipping her wine. This place is cute. Brad leaned in, his voice all business. We've actually been house hunting ourselves. Found one that's almost perfect, just a bit of a stretch with the down payment. And there it was? I waited for the ask. I didn't have to wait long. We thought maybe, Emily said, her tone light, rehearsed, you could help us out a little. Just a loan. 50,000. 60 max. We'd pay you back as soon as Brad's next promotion comes through. I stared at them, my daughter and her husband so polished, so confident. They weren't visiting to reconnect. They were here to assess the assets. I was no longer the burden on their couch. I was a potential benefactor with a guest room and an investment portfolio. I need to think about it, I said. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept replaying every conversation we'd ever had, wondering when the shift happened. When did I stop being a mother and become a means to an end? The next morning, I bought new locks for the front and back doors. Not because I was afraid. Because I needed a boundary that couldn't be undone with a key Emily still had from my old life. Brad called it an overreaction. We're family, he said. Why are you acting like we're strangers? Because in many ways we were. They saw this house as a lucky break. I saw it as my rebirth. They saw my bank account. I saw Lucille's legacy. They came with open hands. I had just started to close mine. At brunch, I told them I wouldn't be loaning money. That the house wasn't a vacation rental. That I was finally starting to feel like myself again, and I wasn't willing to trade that for their approval. Emily's smile cracked. You're different, Mom. I nodded. Yes, and I'm finally okay with that. They left in silence, no hugs, no plans to return. Just the same way they'd left me before, quietly, and with disappointment. Only this time, I was the one who closed the door. There's something oddly sacred about changing a lock with your own hands. Screws, bolts, careful turns. A process slow enough to be meditative, intentional enough to feel like a ritual. It took me nearly 2 hours to replace the old brass knobs on the front and back doors of the bungalow. I wasn't just keeping people out. I was choosing what I would let in. Each click of the screwdriver was like a whispered vow to myself. No more pretending. No more apologizing for taking up space. No more begging to be included in lives that didn't make room for me. The hardware store clerk Lloyd, with a kind face and fingers stained from decades of fixing things, helped me pick out the right tools. He even gave me a quick how-to-on installation. "Most empowering thing you can do," he said, as he rang up the sale. "Every woman should know how to secure her own front door." That night, I locked my home, truly locked it for the first time since arriving. The tumblers fell into place with a sound that echoed louder than any argument or guilt trip could. It was the sound of ownership, of finality, of peace. Emily texted again the next morning. "Mom, this isn't like you. Please talk to us before you do something you'll regret. But I wasn't doing something I'd regret. I was undoing the regrets I'd carried for far too long, regrets for staying quiet, for shrinking myself to fit their comfort, for accepting temporary love with permanent conditions. This house didn't fix everything. But it reminded me that I still had choices. And the power to say no wasn't cruel, it was sacred. For the first time in years, my front door locked from the inside and I held the only key. It's been 3 weeks since Emily and Brad flew back to Oregon. They haven't called. I haven't reached out. The silence between us no longer feels like a punishment. It feels like space to breathe. Every morning I have coffee on the porch Lucille once shared with Margaret. The sunlight slips through the orange trees, and the wind carries quiet and unfamiliar, welcome kind. I joined the neighborhood book club. I planted rosemary and lavender along the front path. I hung the one thing I managed to save from my old home, a faded quilt my mother made on the living room wall. This life is small, maybe, by some people's standards, but it's mine, entirely mine. The other day, I met with Lucille's attorney again. I asked to update the will. "I want to create a scholarship," I told him, "for women over 50 starting over after losing everything." He paused. "Do you have a name for it?" I nodded. "The Second Sunrise Fund." Because that's what this house was. Not a rescue. A sunrise. A second chance to stand tall in the light after months of being treated like I belonged in the dark. I still love Emily, I always will. But love with conditions isn't love, it's currency, and I'm no longer trading parts of myself for proximity to people who call that love. If she ever learns to love me without needing me to be smaller, quieter, easier, I'll open the door again. But until then, I will keep living. Fully. Freely. Unapologetically. And if you're watching this, and you've ever felt like someone's extra piece instead of their priority, let me tell you this. You are allowed to change the locks. You are allowed to choose peace over permission. You are allowed to choose you. And if this story resonated with you, share it. Not